Oh, hey, you're back. Good for me. I enjoy our time together. Where did we leave off at? Ah, yes, we spoke about pride. Shall we continue? So, if pride is what separates you from truth, then what comes next is what you start reaching for once you think you deserve more. Quick disclaimer, this is just my thoughts, my perspective, connecting dots, asking questions, for entertainment purposes only. Yeah, you get it. But seriously, let's talk about something that doesn't just show up in bank accounts. It shows up in the way people feel. Because greed isn't just about having a lot. It's about never feeling like it's enough. And that's where most people misunderstand it. Because when people hear greed, they picture extreme wealth, luxury, excess, someone hoarding money or chasing power. But greed doesn't start there. It starts much quieter than that. It starts as a feeling, a subtle dissatisfaction, a sense that what you have, what you've done, who you are, just isn't enough. And at first, that feeling can actually look productive. It looks like ambition. It looks like drive. It looks like, I just want to do better. And again, on the surface, that's not wrong. Growth is natural. Wanting to improve, wanting to build, wanting to expand, that's part of design. But here's where it shifts. Because ambition knows when to build. Greed never stops. Greed isn't about having more, it's about needing more, even when what you already have is enough. And once that need takes over, everything starts to change. You stop appreciating what's in front of you, because your focus is always on what's next. You stop being satisfied with progress, because progress isn't the goal anymore. More becomes the goal. More money, more recognition, more control, more validation. And the dangerous part is, there's no finish line. Because the moment you get what you were chasing, the feeling doesn't go away. It just moves. You hit one level, now you want the next. You reach one goal, now it feels small. You gain something, and almost immediately, your mind starts calculating what's missing. And over time, that creates a pattern, a cycle, where no matter how much you gain, you never actually feel like you have enough. And this doesn't just stay internal. It starts showing up in decisions, in how you treat people, in what you prioritize, in what you're willing to sacrifice to get more. Because once more becomes the focus, everything else becomes negotiable. Time becomes negotiable. Relationships become negotiable. Integrity becomes negotiable. Not all at once, but piece by piece. And the wild part is, you can be winning on the outside and still feel like you're losing on the inside. You can have more than you ever thought you would and still feel like you're behind. And that right there is the trap. Because greed doesn't just take from others, it takes from you, your peace, your presence, your ability to actually enjoy what you've built. Scripture touches on this idea in the book of Ecclesiastes, that no matter how much a person gains, the desire is never satisfied. Not because something is wrong with having, but because something is off in the wanting. And if we're being honest, most of us have felt this at some level. That moment where what you have suddenly doesn't feel like enough, where you can't even fully enjoy what's in front of you, because part of you is already chasing what's next. Yeah, that's where it starts. And when that pattern continues, it doesn't just stay a feeling, it turns into action. And when it turns into action, the consequences become real. Let's walk through it. And this time, we're not talking about a small example. We're talking about what happens when that same internal pattern gets scaled all the way up. Take Bernie Madoff. For decades, he wasn't seen as a criminal. He was seen as trustworthy, respected, established, someone who had built a name in finance, someone people felt safe handing their money to. And that's important to understand, because this didn't start with collapse. It started with credibility, with success, with the appearance of stability. But somewhere along the line, something shifted. Now, whether that shift started as pressure, expectation, or the desire to maintain a certain level of success, the exact starting point almost doesn't matter, because the pattern is what matters. At some point, reality stopped matching the image. Returns weren't what they needed to be. Performance wasn't lining up with expectation. And instead of adjusting the system, the decision was made to sustain the appearance. And that's where it begins. Not with millions, not with billions, but with a choice. A small step outside of alignment to keep things looking like they were still working. Maybe it felt temporary. Maybe it felt fixable. Maybe it felt like, I just need time to make this right. But once that line is crossed, you don't go back by standing still. You have to keep moving in the same direction, just to maintain what you've already built. So the system grows. New money comes in to cover old gaps. Numbers get adjusted to keep everything consistent. Reports get presented to reinforce the image. And from the outside, everything still looks solid. People are still investing. Trust is still growing. The reputation is still intact, which makes it even harder to stop. Because now it's not just about money. It's about maintaining the position, the image, the identity. And this is where greed really shows itself. Because it's no longer about having enough. It's about protecting more at any cost. More control, more status, more of what's already been built, even if the foundation is starting to crack. And the longer it continues, the bigger it gets. Not just in scale, but in consequence. Because now, it's not a small mistake. It's a system that depends on itself to survive. And here's the part that makes this even more real. Because decisions like that don't usually feel evil in the moment. They feel justified. I'll fix it later. It's just temporary. I just need a little more time to make everything right. And the longer it goes, the easier it becomes to keep going. Because now stopping doesn't feel like an option anymore. Stopping means exposure. Stopping means loss. Stopping means everything you've built comes crashing down. So instead, you keep feeding the system. And while all of that is happening, on the other side of it, there are real people. Families trusting what they were told. People putting in their life savings, retirements, futures, security, all tied to something they believed was solid. And they have no idea what's actually happening underneath. That's the weight of it. Because greed doesn't just stay personal, it spreads. It affects people who didn't make the decision, but still pay the cost. And that's what makes the pattern so dangerous. Because by the time the consequences show up, it's not just you anymore. Until eventually, it can't hold anymore. The truth surfaces, the structure collapses, and all at once, everything that was being sustained disappears. Billions lost, lives impacted, trust broken on a massive scale. And from the outside, people ask the same question every time. How did it get this far? How did nobody stop it? But when you understand the pattern, it makes sense. Because it didn't start with billions. It started with a shift. That same internal shift From this is enough to this isn't enough. And once that took over, every decision after that followed it. And that's the part that matters for us. Because while the scale is different, the pattern isn't. And when that pattern continues unchecked, it leads somewhere very specific. Because greed doesn't just stay a feeling, and it doesn't just stay a decision. It becomes a direction, a path that keeps pulling you forward, even when part of you knows something's off. Because once more becomes the focus, everything else starts adjusting around it. Not all at once, but little by little. You give a little more time, you take a little more risk, you justify one more decision, and each step feels small enough to ignore, until one day you look up and realize how far you've gone. And this isn't just something we see in modern examples. This pattern shows up clearly in Scripture too. Look at Judas Iscariot. He wasn't an outsider. He wasn't disconnected. He was close, trusted, in position, walking alongside truth itself. And yet, there was something internal that shifted. Not overnight, not in one dramatic moment, but gradually. A mindset, a value change, where what he could gain started to outweigh what he was connected to. And eventually, that shift led to a decision, a trade. Truth for gain, connection for currency. And what makes that so powerful is how small the number looks compared to what was lost. Because greed will do that. It will convince you that what you're gaining is worth it, while hiding what it's actually costing you. And once that decision is made, the consequence follows. Not always immediately, but inevitably. Because greed doesn't just cost you what you give up. It costs you what you were connected to. Peace, trust, alignment. And sometimes, it costs you things you can't get back. And this is where it comes back to us. Because it's easy to look at large examples, financial collapse, betrayal, public downfall, and think, I would never go that far. But the truth is, the pattern starts the same way. In smaller decisions, in quiet moments, in those internal shifts where enough stops being enough, where you start chasing more without checking why. And if left unchecked, it leads in the same direction, just on a different scale. So what's the answer? Because if greed is the constant need for more, then the answer isn't having less. It's understanding what's already enough. It's what Scripture points to over and over again. Contentment. Not settling, but recognizing value without needing to constantly increase it. Being able to build, grow, achieve, without losing your center in the process. Because there's nothing wrong with having. There's nothing wrong with building. There's nothing wrong with increasing. But once it controls you, instead of you controlling it, that's when the shift happens. Contentment keeps you grounded. It lets you move forward without losing perspective. It lets you gain without becoming dependent on gaining. It keeps your decisions aligned instead of driven by lack. And once you understand that, you start catching it earlier. That feeling of not enough. You question it, you check it, you realign. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about stopping growth. It's about protecting your foundation while you grow. With that being said, greed is what convinces you that what you have isn't enough. And once that belief takes hold, it starts opening the door to other patterns. Comparison, resentment, desire for what isn't yours. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, comment, share with your loved ones, your family now. And please, join us for our next video as we get into envy. We love you. Take care, and I'll see you there. Hold up. I'm slipping, yo. Straight tripping. I made you a little tune I want you to check out. Let me give you a little sample. Link is in the description. Hope you like it.
It learns to disappear. If something doesn't multiply, it was never meant